Well, g'day again, and I'm privileged to have Kevin Annett back in the studio with me. G'day, Kevin. How are you?
Hi, Mike. I'm doing really well. Thanks.
I hear. Boy, you've been really achieving a lot there, haven't you?
Well, that's quite something.
Yeah. Tell us what you've been up to, first of all.
Well, you folks have probably heard about this, of course, the whole common law assembly movement that's been building all over the world, really. And you yourself are part of that. We passed, in one of the assemblies a few weeks ago, we passed a law that said all these COVID measures are illegal, they're unhealthy, and they're not warranted at all. There's nothing justifying them. We basically banned them in the community of Parksville. It's a small town on Vancouver Island. But then other assemblies started doing that as well. And just 4 days ago, a council formed of all the different common law assemblies in mostly the eastern part of Canada. And they said this law now applies to all of Canada. It says the COVID measures are wrong. We're not obliged to obey them. Anyone who tries to impose them on us is committing a crime and can be subject to arrest and trial in a common law court. So that was accompanied by a stand-down order to all the officials. And we basically turned the tables on them and said, you guys are committing a crime and you're answerable to us. So the people passed the law and enforced it. And that's the whole purpose of these assemblies, to do exactly that. And we had an unbelievable response. We had, in the first 24 hours, over 60,000 hits on the internet. I've lost track. It's over 1,000 volunteers in the last 4 days. People who want to form assemblies, who want to get active. It's an incredible response. But there's been a counterattack. Two of the assemblies that organized, including the one that passed that, were attacked. They were infiltrated in a classic kind of black ops campaign. People, the same guy entered both assemblies and started spreading rumors, started pitting people against each other, and it basically caused these assemblies to collapse and not work anymore because nobody knew who to trust anymore. It's a classic kind of thing. In my book, Whistleblower Manual, I go into this in detail about how it's done, how black ops happen. And they use infiltrators and not just informants, but people who are trained how to get on the good side of people and then turn them against each other. And we have to expect this kind of thing. So we're as part of the education programs in the common law workshops, we're now making one of the subjects is the whole thing of how to maneuver around these black ops, how to deal with counterattack by the state, how to survive, for example, forming more of a cell structure where people can go off in groups of 3 or 4 and start taking actions on their own. They don't have to have it all channeled through one organization that can be taken down, right? So that's good and bad. You know, it's getting worse and better all at the same time. And there's an enormous outcry all over the country. We keep hearing things like, you know, I don't want to take my child to school. They're going to be locked up. My father is dying of cancer and they don't let me go see him. I mean, just all this horrible grief coming out because of this police state that's being imposed. So there's a great building up of resistance among a lot of people who are not political at all. Yes. They keep saying, you know, I've never been involved politically in any kind of, you know, movement, and yet I've got to be now. And so it shows we're hitting much more of the mainstream, and we got these criminals in power very worried about that because we're doing, you know, what they used to do, which is to pass laws and enforce them. They don't even operate anymore under the law. They impose their own decrees. So we're reestablishing the rule of law. As you know, that's what common law assemblies do. So it's very encouraging. I also get from all over the world. I was speaking to people in Russia, in Poland, even in Thailand. They've heard about this thing and they want to form, you know, their own. And I say you can, because common law has got universal jurisdiction. That's the law of nature born in all of us. And you can act on that. And so it's just really encouraging, and I'm feeling good, very optimistic about where we're heading with all this.
D Mark Mark, as the Thais would say, which means very good.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Cool.
I speak Thai. So,
yeah. Great.
Yes. Everybody should have a copy of this book. It's
Yes.
The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and I know you follow it very closely.
Mm-hmm.
But the techniques that you're using and that we're employing here too are based on Sun Tzu's advice, and we're going about things very differently to how we used to. There are still people who are going out on the streets and protesting here. But the police are just using massive police pressure and presence and arresting people, fining people. That's not working. So next weekend up here on the Sunshine Coast where I live in southeast Queensland, we've got a meeting convened. I started advertising it a week ago. So far we've got about 150 people who have committed to come. Hopefully they'll all get here. But we've still got another week to go, and I'm hoping that we'll double that number. If that happens, we have got an outdoor venue right next door to the hall where we were going to hold the meeting. And we'll have a sound system, we'll have video cameras, we'll have everything set up. I've got a very good team working with me, so we're well organised now. Yesterday, we held an online mock court, and actually it was a lot more than that. We were testing out to see how we could hold a national court on a Zoom meeting. Learned a lot of very valuable lessons from that, and this morning I actually wrote a report for the organisers and a few other people involved, which I've sent you a copy of. And I hope that analysis will give us a good working blueprint to go from there. We have to get more organised. We have to become more professional in our approach. Up until now, we've been letting people come into the meetings who don't have any knowledge of common law or very little, who don't really understand how it all works. And as a result, you know, people look at it and go, oh, I don't think I want to have a court case with those guys. Yeah. We have to be very careful from now on. And I'm sure you're finding the same thing, right?
It's been a real sifting out process, you know, Mike. Naturally, our first impulse is to bring in as many people as possible, but that is how infiltrators get in, first of all. And also, like you say, most people have not learned to think outside the box. They keep saying things like, well, are the police in favor of this? I don't see this listed on government websites anymore, so it can't be real. Kind of that level of ignorance, right? About what we're in. So we find we have to solidify, and a lot of our energy has gone into solidifying that kind of professional core of people who are knowledgeable and they're veterans. They know how to, you know, and Sun Tzu says that battles are never won by the majority, but by the leadership vanguard of veterans, right? Right. And they bring everybody else in their wake. If we don't establish that core, we can't continue because there's no way, it'll just all fall apart. And I've seen that happen in assemblies where they don't sift it out. There's constant sifting going on, right? And we shouldn't hesitate to exclude people and find that group that's going to keep it going forward. You know, eventually when it gets big enough, the assemblies will become more open and democratic. We want to raise the level of awareness, but we're not there right now. No. And we're kind of destroying our own potential by not taking that seriously, by not realizing that we have to weed out a lot of people and focus on the, you know, the ones who are going to be committed and are knowledgeable enough to know how to do that, right?
Right, that's correct. And we're finding the same thing here. So we're now addressing that. Some more good news. The website as of Monday will go live with our automated system. And I've seen it, and boy, does it work nicely. So when you register your birth or your car or your land, or you register the forthcoming birth of a child and anything like that at all, or if you want to register your participation in a common law assembly, you'll get a nice framed certificate in PDF format. You can print out and show on the wall or anywhere else, and you'll be registered in the system. Now, once we're ironing out all the bugs right now over this weekend, and I'm sure that we'll find a few more bugs over the next couple of weeks, but we should have everything working very smoothly very soon. Now, the beauty of this is that it's scalable, which means that once we've got it established here, we can offer it to your group or to New Zealand or the UK or Poland or anybody else in their language, and they will have their own database, dedicated database on the server, and it'll be accessible to you, and you'll be able to send out messages, organize things. So this is a really good system, and boy, oh boy, this is just the start. We've got some more stuff coming up that's going to blow people's socks off. So it is a very exciting time.
We're going to need it, you know, because things are only going to get worse. We know that. And, you know, the whole situation, even to the uninformed, it's so obvious that we're just in a police state now, and there's no bones about it. And there's some emotional and mental catch up that people need to do because they're thinking in terms of the past all the time.
Yeah.
Which is a normal human trait, right? But I say, no, forget about demonstrations. Who are you asking for? Forget about petitions. You might as well throw them away now. We have to take back power. So always think in terms of what's going to take us our power back and create something new altogether, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have difficulty understanding a few concepts. One is that every man is born with inalienable rights, and therefore we are sovereign within ourselves. We don't need kings. I hear quite a lot of people saying, oh, King Greg Hallett. Well, so what? I mean, the man is a pretender to the throne anyway, and I'm not even sure that he's got any right to it because he's got an older brother. If anybody was going to be a pretender to the throne, it should be his older brother.
Nobody has a right to a claim to a throne in the first place.
Exactly. I'm just saying if.
Yeah.
So you've got that problem. And then you've got people coming to me and saying, well, why don't you get the government to do something? Hey, hello, the government is the problem. Why would you go to the criminals who are harming you?
Right.
And then in terms of infrastructure, you know, we are facing a worldwide threat from these people. The banksters, the big business, the politicians. They're trying to install a one world government. So by giving our software and technology to common law groups around the world, we are actually creating an alternative government, worldwide government, but with a big difference. Our government comes from the people. The base is the people. And we're always going to be accountable to the people, and the people are going to be accountable for their own actions. So once we start to establish this, it'll take on very quickly once people realize that they have the power. We all have that power. And there's no need to bend our knee to kings and popes. We are sovereign.
That's right. We're the sovereign. Well, you know, it's a really important point that you make, Mike, because people continually talk about, you know, not only appealing to the existing power structures, but there's a group in Canada called Unify the People, and they've gone really nuts. They're starting to attack me personally. I think it's kind of a rivalry thing because it, you know, but to be attacking each other right now is insane. It's suicidal. That's exactly what these murderous powers want. But their plan is you write a constitution and then give it to people. And we're saying no. Every local assembly have got to write their own constitution, and the process has got to be from the grassroots up. That's how power keeps in the hands of the people.
Yeah.
So encourage everyone to write their constitution, create the laws they want, and then eventually have wider regional assemblies or whatever but that's the democratic process, not, you know, 10 guys in a room handing down something to everybody else, right?
Exactly. And we're doing the same thing here. But I got an email yesterday and this morning from this guy who actually was asking me to help him in a legislative court because he's got all these fines outstanding now. And I told him, I said, look, you know, we try to help you to stay out of court with the ebook that I publish, steps to fight fines and stay out of court. But I said, once you're in court, you're in their grip. You should have stayed out of court. If you got to the stage where they were saying, well, we're going to take you to court, pay the fine and walk away, you know, cut your losses. Fight them as hard as you can. But at the end of the day, you don't want to end up in their court because once you do, you lose. It's that simple.
Well, and also the courts. I mean, I remember a friend of mine in Ontario, they seized his guns last year and he's been in a big legal fight to get them back. A cop actually told him, you'd be lucky if your case comes to court in the next 2 years because of the huge backlog. So if they want to fine us, good. Hand me the ticket. I don't care. Yep. You're never going to collect on this, never going to go to court. And as a matter of fact, one of our assemblies in Ontario wants to do a public ticket burning. Get all the fines and all the tickets you've been given, have a big bonfire and burn them all. And say, this is what we think of the crown system in Canada. It doesn't exist. You're not acting like a government. Why the hell should we recognize you, right?
Yep, that's right. And under Article 61 of the Magna Carta, it states that if a government is not serving the people, we have every right to lawfully rebel. And that's what we are doing.
And seize crown land too. That's in section 61. It says everything except the person of the quote king
Yeah.
can be seized as reparations. That means the whole kit and caboodle, all the land, right?
Yes. A lot of people seem to think, though, Kevin, that the Magna Carta gives us our rights, which of course is wrong. We already have inalienable rights from the day we were born, and that has happened throughout history. Everybody is born the same. We all have those rights like freedom of movement, freedom of speech, and so on. What did the Magna Carta achieve then?
Well, it was the first time that in writing, the absolute power of monarchs, whether religious or secular, was restricted. And it was really a statement that, drawing a line, you can only go so far. We need courts that are established by our peers. There has to be a way to review them. You can't charge somebody without evidence and corroborating witnesses. All of those ideas were first formulated there, but they were just articulating what was already common sense with
exactly.
people.
We'd always had common law in England. In fact, every society has common law. It's the law of the land.
Right.
And,
Right. But it was interesting with Magna Carta, the Pope immediately excommunicated anyone who signed it, right?
Yeah.
And in later versions, they tried to exclude Section 61 because the king went, oh my God, what have we done here? We've handed over the whole country to the commoners, right? So, I mean, these precedents are important to remember, but the rights only exist when we practice them. That's kind of the bottom line.
That's right. If we let the rights go, we lose them. And then we often have to pay in blood to get them back. And we don't want that. Right. We want to get our rights back under common law. The other thing that a lot of people criticize the Magna Carta for is that King John, they say, was forced to sign it at knife point. Is that true?
There's different stories about that. I think, no, it wasn't simply a case that you see that in the movies, right? The point is the king, John had just been excommunicated himself. The entire country of England was under papal interdict, which means you couldn't have masses, you couldn't hear confessions, nothing. The whole country, the Pope said, okay, everything is frozen. And politically, John was trying to find a way around that, and he needed the help of the barons to do that. So it was a political maneuver right now. And very soon after that, they brought in the first law called Praemunire. And Praemunire said if a foreign power is influencing the laws of England, it's treason. And they were talking specifically about the Vatican. So suddenly, this was kind of a precursor to the Reformation, because they said Catholic priests are agents of a foreign power. They're not to take money out of the country. We're not to have so-called canon law applying in England. And there was that big battle between the pulpit and the crown started, but that was all politics. And they use the barons to try to counter Rome and all that. But the point is that it's kind of power politics up here, but it served the general purpose of saying, well, we're restricting the power of both of them. Monarchs have no place in a true democracy, right?
And if you look at the situation today, history repeats. We have exactly the same problem here. These politicians are employees of a foreign corporation. Therefore, they don't work for us. They work for this foreign corporation under the United Nations. So we have every right to rebel against them. And rebelling we are. So just tell us a little bit more now, mate, about how you convene these common law assemblies and what you did in these meetings.
Well, it started out by, first step was people would get together to talk about the ideas they've been reading about. And I often would give a presentation about, we can't just talk, we have to have some, the analogy I used is you need an engine, a piston for the steam, right? Otherwise, we're not going to move anywhere. And so creating the assembly was, of course, the first step. Signing the charter, people, were given some education as to what that would mean, that you have each other's backs, that you don't just walk away after you've signed this charter. It's an oath. It's a commitment to defend each other. And that was often debated a fair amount. And then I found everywhere I went, though, there was the desire to sign it, to get going, to establish it. There's a real desire to do something, right, to defend each other. Right away, it was often the case that we appointed a sheriff, somebody to start thinking in terms of how we enforce these orders. how do we, protect our own members and the children in our community and all of this stuff. That was a real priority for everyone. And what we found at the same time is it's kind of like watching the guy go up to the 10-meter diving board and look over and then kind of go back down the ladder because he chickens out, right? That's, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, in a lot of the, I would say majority of the assemblies, people got to the brink and then they pull back. They said, well, do we really want to face the state? Do we really want to take on these people? It's better just to sit here and talk, or take on issues that are not going to, they kind of maneuver around all the time. I remember there was this funny story, a guy who went through the American Civil War. He said the Confederate cannon shells were coming at them, and there was this one big tree, and everybody in the company were lined up behind the tree. And when the cannonball would go that way, they'd move like this, right? They kind of hid behind the tree thinking that's going to protect them. It's this natural human desire to avoid direct conflict and confrontation. And when I would say something like we're at war, people would say, well, don't use that word war. It's going to scare people off. And I said, hello, the shells are dropping, people. I'm not imagining this. We are at war. We have to think in a different way and think offensively and not how do I protect myself, right? So all of that went on, right? Oops. All of that went on, but the point is that there's enough people who survived all that uncertainty, and they're still hanging in there enough to keep it going. And like I said, that core of more serious people is what you need to carry on over the long run.
Well, we've seen horrendous videos here in Australia, especially down in Victoria, of police attacking pregnant women, women sitting in cars, men just walking down the street and being beaten up and arrested because they weren't wearing a mask, or they've transgressed some other one of their legislative bullshit. And people are starting to see now the nature of the government and the dictatorship, really. And it's very, very disturbing. So now people are coming to us and saying, well, what can we do about this? Yeah. And my answer is, well, what are you prepared to do? Are you prepared to stand together? Are you prepared to fight back? And what we're doing now at this meeting on, actually there's one taking place today in South Australia, and they're doing the same thing. My business partner, Peter, down there is doing it. But we're going to do the same thing here. We'll convene the Common Law Assembly. We will appoint a few sheriffs. In fact, we'll probably appoint as many as possible, because once we pass the bylaw banning COVID restrictions on the Sunshine Coast, we're going to send the sheriffs out with a copy of the bylaw to inform our businesses around here. They don't have to comply. And they will get a copy of the bylaw they can put up in their window and say, we're no longer complying with these COVID restrictions. We won't go around arresting anybody at this stage unless it's government operatives who are trying to stop them. But otherwise, we want the people to cooperate and realize that they have the power. It's that simple.
Well, Mike, I would like to invite you right now to come on my show tomorrow to talk about all this, because people keep saying, what's going on in Australia? We hear there's horrible things happening. I'd like to get it right from the horse's mouth from you, if you wouldn't mind. It's 3 p.m. Pacific, so it'd be 2.5 hours before this time, if that works for you.
Yeah, that'd be fine. No problem.
I'll send you the info after, but thank you, because I want your voice of what you're doing there to be heard in Canada, especially, because we're both officially, quote, Commonwealth. We're both fighting the same enemy, right?
Exactly. And you're welcome to share this video around once I put it up on YouTube channel, The Bloody Aussie Battler. We're building up awareness very quickly. I've gone from about a month and a half ago, I had about 1,000 subscribers. Now I've got nearly 4,000.
Excellent.
Yeah. So the numbers are coming in very fast, and people now waking up and realizing we are in deep trouble. If we don't take action now, we never will be able to.
Have you been getting any overt kind of attacks? Your people picked off or arrested or anything like that? Or
oh yes,
yeah,
yes, absolutely. That was the one I was talking about. The young woman, pregnant woman. The police invaded her home because she actually had the gall to post up information about the rally last weekend in Melbourne, or was the weekend before. They're picking people off who've got the guts to stand up on Facebook. To be honest with you, I don't bother posting much on Facebook these days. So, you know, I'm trying to keep away from those people, those that would do harm, so that I can continue the work I'm doing.
We find, you know, the takedown happens first, not by getting clubbed on the head. They send people in. They don't need to attack us if we attack each other. That's the simplest way. So if you can get a group to destroy itself through these black ops methods, that's the cleanest way for them to do it. Then they don't look bad. It just looks like a bunch of loony activists attacking each other, right?
Yes, and I actually had some guy email me this morning and say, oh, there's people going around talking about your common law group. You know, you're all infighting. Well, yes, that happened in the early days when we were getting organized. A few people left the group and there were a few problems. But I'll tell you what, we've learned from that. And nowadays we are unified. We had about 40 people on the common law mock court yesterday. Our Zoom calls every Tuesday and Thursday evening have got lots and lots of people, sometimes 60 or 80 people. So we're unified. We're working together, but there is a core group that is doing all the work behind the scenes too. And I think this is the best way to do it.
There's no other way to do it,
I think we're just about run out of time, mate. We've done very nice having you on the show, and I look forward to being with you tomorrow.
Thanks, Mike.
Stay strong. Bye now.
You too.
I'm just a lonely old rover, sitting alone in this bar. I've been thinking it over, got no money to refill my jar. Spent so many years droving, one night stands in small towns. Never knew where I was going till we reached the darling Downs. But I wouldn't change a thing. Life is just that way. You take what your life brings. You know we have no my horses no more, getting too old for all the flames, and the bouncers toss me out the door. I'm getting used to these aches and pains, but I wouldn't change a thing. Life is just that way. You take what your life brings. You know we have no say, and I won't be out there riding, chasing brumbies across the range, shearing live sheep on Sundays, and drinking till I'm blind. But I wouldn't change a thing. Life is just that way. You take what your life brings. You know we have no say, and I won't be out there riding no more.
If you have chosen the Red Pill, then there is only one place to host your website. Enlightened hosting, no censorship. Domains, hosting, secure. Build your website and get online fast. www.redpillhosting.com.
If you're enjoying the Bloody Aussie Battler podcast, please consider donating to help keep us going. You can donate just once or make it a monthly donation. Any amount is welcome. To donate, go to our website at www.thebloodyausiebattler.com and click on Donate.